Alina felt her fingers tremble as she held the phone, the light from the screen casting shadows across her face that danced like restless spirits around the polished office walls. She had never expected to enter a place so opulent, yet cold at the same time. The millionaire leaned back in his chair, slowly, his eyes never leaving the screen, as if it contained secrets meant only for him and her. Curiosity burned hotter with every passing second. She wondered why he looked so different from the confident man she had seen in interviews and photographs. Her thoughts raced uncontrollably. She imagined all the possible scenarios. Why would he laugh like that? Why would a simple bank balance cause such a reaction? Her pulse quickened as she tried to remember if she had made some mistake in logging in, or if it was something far worse. He finally spoke, his voice low and almost trembling. Alina blinked, trying to catch every word, but it sounded like riddles meant to confuse and unsettle her. She felt a chill creep up her spine and instinctively took a step back, as though distance could protect her. From whatever revelation waited on that screen, the office seemed to grow darker, with each heartbeat the light outside the window fading into the dusk, casting long, sinister shadows that stretched across the floor and walls. She felt trapped in a moment that was expanding beyond control, as if time itself had stopped to watch them. Alina tried to steady her breathing, but the air felt heavy, like it had weight and pressure pressing down on her chest. She forced herself to glance at the screen again, and her eyes widened, not fully understanding what she was seeing, yet sensing the gravity of it all. He laughed again, but it was quieter this time, and not warm. The sound seemed hollow, like a warning or a signal she couldn't decipher, yet it made her stomach twist with unease. She wanted to turn away, but something compelled her to stay rooted to the spot, as if the answer was meant to consume her entire. Leo knock echoed somewhere in the office, though no one else had been expected. It startled her. She turned sharply, her instincts screaming that something was not right. Her heart thundering and the light from the phone flickering like a dying candle. She felt eyes on her from corners she couldn't see. Man's expression shifted suddenly from amusement to something darker, something almost fearful, and it made her step closer, despite her nerves, her curiosity stronger then caution. She needed to know why he had reacted like that. What secret had she inadvertently uncovered? Her hand hovered over the screen as though she could touch the truth and pull it out of hiding. He gestured slightly, a warning in his eyes that she ignored because she felt the pulse of destiny running through her veins, and it was irresistible. Then the phone vibrated once, a small sound that felt deafening in the silence. The notification blinked like an urgent signal. She glanced down and froze. She could not comprehend the digits at first, her mind refusing to accept what her eyes had seen. But slowly, the reality sunk in. The balance displayed was not hers, but something far larger, far more impossible. Her breath caught in her throat, and she felt a cold sweat on the back of her neck, the kind that warned you danger was near, and that curiosity might have led her into a place. She could not escape. The man's gaze softened slightly, but there was no warmth, only a recognition, as if he knew the weight of the secret she was holding. He leaned forward, his fingers lightly brushing the phone, and yet not touching it fully. His eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that made her stomach twist. Outside the window, a car door slammed. Somewhere on the street, a mundane sound that somehow made the moment more terrifying. The city continued, as if unaware of the storm brewing inside the room. She felt a flicker of panic rise, her heartbeat a drum in her ears, but she forced herself to remain calm, pretending she understood more than she did. Her mind ran in circles. She tried to remember if she had ever accessed a balance that enormous. She could not. The thought seemed ludicrous, yet undeniable. The numbers glaring at her from the screen carried an almost hypnotic power, demanding her attention. He straightened in his chair, a shadow passing over his face. She could not tell if it was anger or fear, but it made her stomach tighten. She realized she had stepped into a world where rules were unknown and consequences were invisible, yet inevitable. Then the lights flickered briefly, plunging the room into a semi-darkness that made the sleek furniture appear monstrous and alive. The shadows moved unnaturally, and she felt as though something unseen was approaching closer to them. Waiting for the right moment to strike, she swallowed hard, trying to force herself to speak. The words stuck in her throat. Every sound she made echoed strangely and unnervingly in the large office, as if the walls were listening and judging, and she wondered if leaving would even be an option once the truth was revealed. He leaned closer and whispered something almost inaudible. She could not catch it, yet the tone was sharp, a warning, wrapped in urgency, and it made her step instinctively back toward the door, her fingers brushing the cold handle, the simplest act, feeling like a lifeline in a storm. The screen blinked again, another notification, this time different from the first. And her pulse skyrocketed. She stared at it as if it might bite her, the digits rearranging themselves into a pattern that seemed impossible, yet frighteningly real. She felt the weight of eyes, not her own, in the room outside. The street grew quieter as dusk deepened and the city lights flickered in response to some unseen rhythm. She felt like a character in a story she could not rewrite, her every instinct screaming that she was dangerously close to crossing a threshold that could not be. Uncrossed, the man's laughter returned, but almost as a sigh, this time like a release of tension that had been building for years. She could not understand it, and she felt both drawn to him and wary at the same time, the complexity of his reaction wrapping around her like smoke. Then the screen went dark. Suddenly, her reflection staring back at her briefly before the phone powered down completely. The room plunged into shadows and silence, and she realized that whatever had been revealed could no longer be seen, yet the sense of danger had only deepened. Her hand froze in midair. She felt as though invisible hands were holding her in place, the air thick with tension and secrets that had been unearthed too quickly for her to process, and she realized in that moment that nothing in her life would ever feel normal again. Alina felt the darkness of the office pressing down on her as she stared at the blank screen, the silence heavy like a living thing that made her heartbeat echo painfully. In her ears, she could almost hear the shadows whispering secrets she was not ready to hear. Millionaire stood slowly, his movements deliberate and careful, as if each step carried the weight of centuries. She watched him approach, and the air seemed to thicken with tension, her stomach twisting with anticipation and fear. She could not move, yet could not look away. Stopped just a few feet from her, the faintest glimmer of a smile flickering and disappearing as quickly as it had appeared. And Alina realized that the laughter she had heard was a mask, hiding something much darker. Something she could not yet name. Her phone vibrated again, its sudden pulse startling her. She instinctively grabbed it, her fingers shaking as she unlocked the screen. The numbers that appeared made her blood run cold and a chill creep down her spine, the balance now rearranged into a pattern she could not begin to comprehend. He leaned closer, whispering words that cut through the tension like a knife, yet she could not fully hear them. They were muffled, almost like a secret being shared between ghosts, and she felt the pull of curiosity stronger than ever, despite the danger gnawing at her inside. Suddenly, the office door clicked open, and she froze, her breath catching in her throat. A draft slipped in, carrying a faint metallic scent that made her stomach twist. She sensed movement behind her, the sound of shoes, unpolished marble echoing unnervingly, and she realized they were not alone. Millionaire's eyes narrowed, his expression unreadable, and Alina felt a cold dread that made her fingers tighten around her phone. She wanted to run, yet every instinct screamed that stepping forward might be just as dangerous as stepping back outside. The window, a car engine hummed faintly, the sound ordinary, yet it made the hairs on her neck stand on end. The city continued, unaware of the storm inside the office. A storm made of numbers and secrets, and power too vast for her to even imagine. She looked back at the screen, the balance now flashing like a warning sign, a trail of digits leading her into a labyrinth she could not navigate alone. The power it represented, both intoxicating and terrifying. She realized that curiosity had led her to the edge of something irreversible. The man moved to a side table, pulling out a small device she had not noticed before his hands. Steady yet deliberate, and Elena's heart pounded. She tried to step closer to see, but he raised a hand, a silent command that froze her in place, the shadows in the room seeming to lean closer to listen. Her mind raced, she imagined every possible explanation, from impossible wealth to hidden accounts to mistakes that could ruin lives, yet the atmosphere was heavy with intent. She could almost feel the weight of consequences pressing down on her chest. Then the phone vibrated once more, a sharp, insistent pulse that felt alive. She flinched and looked down and froze. The numbers on the screen had shifted again, now forming a sequence that seemed to point towards something beyond the office, a location or a clue she could not yet understand. He noticed her glance, and his eyes darkened, a warning hidden beneath a calm veneer.